Bungie is in trouble as Edge of Fate hasn't quite delivered to the standard that previous annual expansions would expect. I mean, and we're way off the mark. Steam charts, we got a 48-hour period here, okay? July 15th game launches. All right, we hit our peak at 98,000. 99,131 was the peak, which again, previously we've hit 300,000 on most annual expansion launches. One day in, and we're already hitting a low of 41,000. One day in, and we're already hitting 41,000 players on Steam, which is crazy low by comparison. Okay, then we go back up to the popular hours, the reset time when the majority of players are playing the game, and we get up to like 88%. And then we dip down again to 38,000 on day number 2. We're already back to the 30,000s. I mean, this is 30,000, just to give you a context. If we go to our 7-day, 38,000 was where we were just before. Like July 14th, we're at 37,000. All right, so we're at 30,000, and then we get back up to the kind of popular hours. And here we are in the hot spot, right? We're at the reset time, and we're sitting around the 70,000s. So the graph started off much lower, and so now the low points are going to be way lower than ever before. It's just a common thing if you've studied stats and things like that. It's pretty obvious how things are going to trend unless there's a lot of depth to the expansion, right? And then we also can look at the Steam reviews of this over here. We got over here, go type in Destiny here. Destiny, the Edge of Fate. It's $40, right? The reviews are mixed. Currently it's at 53%. It now has 731 reviews, so this is pretty much cemented as this is what the average person looking at the reviews or being interested is going to find. It's got mixed reviews. It's got a low population. It's pretty drab. So now we've got various critics and articles speaking out in regards to this situation. So Game Rant here says Destiny 2 obviously needs more than Edge of Fate to reignite its fire. Destiny 2, The Edge of Fate, launched earlier this week, and as the beginning of a whole new arc for the series, it has a lot to prove. As beautiful as it was, the final shape felt like a swan song for Destiny 2, and many players who had been with the series for its decade-long run chose that moment to be their jumping off point. This is true. I mean, and obviously it had a finality to it, right? The name, the narrative, etc. But of course, Destiny is meant to be a live service game, so it's meant to go on and on and on, expansion after expansion, release after release. It wasn't meant to be box service, right? Box service means it has a beginning and an end, and then you launch Destiny 2, Destiny 3, Destiny 4, etc. We're way past that. They stopped doing that in the early years of Destiny 2. As such, there has been a lot of conversation before even the new story arcs reveal as to how Destiny might recapture its audience after its biggest narrative hook was behind it. And so far, The Edge of Fate is struggling to reignite that fire. Taking Guardians to Kepler, The Edge of Fate is the first chapter of a new story that focuses on the Nine, introducing dark matter as a core concept that could serve as a new narrative foothold, which it seems like that's where it's going, right? Dark matter. Several of the new things found in Destiny 2's latest expansion have been received very well, from much needed quality of life changes and system revamps to new characters like the enigmatic Lodi. I do like Lodi. I think he's a really interesting character. And when you contrast him to someone like Nimbus, you're like, oh man, thank goodness we're not continuing going down that route. But among all of these necessary changes, it is clear that Destiny is on a long road to finding its identity again. And more than anything, this is reflected in some cold, hard data. So we got the player count reveals that Destiny 2 needs to go further than the Edge of Fate to truly shine. Destiny 2 is no stranger to ups and downs in its history, with some pretty famous low points such as Curse of Osiris and Season of the Hunt, to name a few. Each time, the game was beset with big issues and the community was making its voice heard loud and clear. But Bungie, the veteran studio behind two of the most iconic FPS franchises ever, always found a way back. And each time, the community was there to rally behind a studio that had embraced its issues and come back stronger. Which is why every time we're talking about the population or Destiny dying or dwindling, everyone's always roasting it like, yeah, we've been here. This is just a normal cycle, right? But the problem with that type of conversation, the problem with that type of rhetoric, is that the cycle of people saying Destiny is dying is usually at the end of the calendar year, right? Like we have the launch of the final shape, and then 11 months later, we're like, Destiny is dying. Or maybe 10 months later after the final shape, right? Or the Witch Queen, or name any annual expansion. But instead, we're now, for the first time ever, and maybe not ever, maybe Curse of Osiris. No. I think in terms of population, we're at the first time ever where we're starting to say Destiny is dying, and we're 48 hours into an annual expansion. That's crazy, all right? If that's not telling of the times, then I don't know what is. This time, though, the rallying cry has revealed a lot about Destiny 2's current predicament. With the Edge of Fate's launch, Destiny 2's 24-hour peak concurrent Steam player count was 99,131. This is unprecedented for a series so far, as even the controversial Beyond Light expansion drew in 241,000 at its peak. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about 300K. They're going back to Beyond Light, which is 5 years ago. I'm talking about Final Shape, talking about Lightfall and Witch Queen, all around 300,000. Yeah, right there. Final Shape was at 314,000. I even rounded down. That's less than a third. Insane, right? Insane that we're that far off. Obviously, it was expected that many players would fall off after the Light and Darkness saga was completed, which is why Bungie needed to introduce new players. They needed to create a new entry point for a new audience to jump into the game. They hit a brick wall with that one. This is not the entry point. But Bungie was most likely hoping that the draw of a new story could bring players back with new mysteries and secrets. So far, that hasn't moved the needle for many fans, and it could be a sign that Destiny 2 needs to go further than Kepler if it wants to really excite. While player numbers might be concerning, they are consistent with one trend. Though the numbers are significantly lower than normal, they do follow a historic pattern. Generally, each expansion in Destiny 2's history has increased its player base approximately threefold. This can be seen most recently with the Final Shape, where 116,000 players the month before became 314 upon its release. The same is true for the Edge of Fate, where before the peak, player count was around 38,000. The expansion boosted it to 99,000, almost 3 times higher, which is why the low points being lower than ever before means that when you triple a lower number, it's just less, right? Like if the player base was 10,000, we'd be hitting 30,000. While the Edge of Fate could perhaps have offered a more compelling reason to get involved in Destiny all over again, it also shows that maybe a core contingent of players are just checked out no matter what. Once the Final Shape came and went, so did they. And Bungie should look elsewhere for its audience. And that is why Bungie took a ton of money and time and developmental effort to develop a new franchise, which was Marathon. And this puts them in a very difficult predicament because Marathon is a very troubled game right now, right? Marathon is on life support if even it stands a chance of even launching at all, right? Marathon is in such a bad predicament. Right now what they're doing, they scrubbed the assets. They allowed people to jump into the alpha and play again. They kept that alpha on an ironclad NDA. Anyone that talked about it got DMCA'd. They got their Discords taken offline. We've talked about that. So they're keeping it under wraps. But even though they want to keep it under wraps so well, it's not a good idea in that it's still going to end with the same result. There's nothing they could do to make it so interesting that it truly wins everyone over, I think. You have to build a whole new core audience, starting from not ground zero. You're below ground zero. You already have a negative sentiment toward your game that's not even out yet. And everyone already hates it. Everyone's already against it. This is not a good way to, like, you usually want to start, you're starting from ground zero and you got to build that hype and momentum. They've got negative aura, right? Marathon has negative aura. No one wants to touch that game. No one wants to be associated with that game. No one wants to play it or be a part of it. I don't think there's a chance they turn that around. Bungie was really looking for that to be the way that they grow their company, which is definitely scary for them. So if you look at some of the top comments here, they said, I believe Destiny 2 would gain a lot more followers if the pricing was cheaper and fair. Paying $100 for an expansion for any game is too much. To be fair, the Edge of Fate itself is $40. There are a lot of AAA games that cost $20 to $40 less. We're getting right now the Edge of Fate, and then you're also getting the Renegades. Also on the matter of fair pricing, I bought the expansion thinking I could pay for the season pass separately later. I came to find out that this is not an option, nor has it been since the time they wiped out half of the content that people paid full price for. The only way to get the season pass was to pay for the campaign / season pass bundle. That's not right. I shouldn't have to pay for the combo price when I already paid for the campaign. That's cheating the consumers. Yeah, it's tough. It's good to see that Bungie is trying to break away from its previous saga, but at the moment, I'm not sure it has all the pieces in place to make me incredibly excited. I have mixed opinions on this to some degree because while I do think that I like the narrative, I think that we're not really starting off on a very triumphant note. Maybe it's just a sign of the times. Destiny is an exhausted franchise. Maybe we'll never see another high note like that of the Final Shape. If the previous cycles have taught us anything as Destiny players, it's that Bungie tends to win big and then they kind of shit the bed for a little bit. It's usually like the best expansion happens and then the follow-up to that kind of not the best always. I was kind of hoping they'd break that trend in some ways. Obviously the verdict isn't completely out on this. I mean, I'm still having fun. I'm still playing. The portal not my favorite. I have mixed opinions on a lot of stuff with it. And I wish I was overtly excited for everything. We're not quite there yet. I think the last bit for this is the raid. If the raid is awesome, super high replayability, really gives the Destiny players an experience like they've never seen before, I think that sells it, because as it stands right now, I mean, the Edge of Fate is really just 3 components. It's Kepler, the campaign, and the raid. I mean, that's it. Kepler, the campaign, and the raid. Now, Kepler as a planetary destination is actually pretty cool. Not too bad. The campaign was good. It was a good narrative. The experience running around as a ball, not my favorite. Not anyone's favorite, it would seem. But, you know, it was fun. It was all right. I had mixed opinions. Sometimes it was fun. Sometimes it was obnoxious. And then lastly is the raid. We have yet to see the raid, but from the leaks, which I'm not going to talk about, no spoilers here, but from the leaks, it looks like it might deliver in a big way. So fingers crossed that the raid is a massive success and gets everyone hyped to play the Edge of Fate, and we can see an increase in player population, because right now it's looking pretty rough, down to 38,000 players. I want to see what the comparison is when we go to 1 year. May of 2024, so this would be the final shape. It was 314,000, and then it dropped down to 100,000 1 month later, and then 63,000. This is what we were talking about with the final shape, where it didn't age well. 41,000 by September. This is Destiny's biggest problem, is it's not aging very well. Basically, it has an issue of retention. If we were to diagnose Destiny's problem, it has an issue of retention. If it has an issue of retention, then you need the peaks to be really high, because that's the main source of revenue that you're going to find. And if the peaks are really low, like where they're at now, you can see all the annual expansions previously, like these big peaks, right? This is where we're at. This is meant to be the peak time here. And it's just a low valley way down here. You can see all the previous stuff. You got Final Shape, you've got Lightfall, you've got Witch Queen. You can see it all here. Oh, this would be Beyond Light right here. And then here we are, man. The graph looking like this. This is the most depressing graph. If I have to be honest, this is a very depressing graph. We're supposed to be seeing this right now, you know, which means Bungie is just losing. They're bleeding money, like a crazy amount of money right now. And they can be as smiley and as happy as they want on social media. Behind closed doors, they're like, shit, we really fucked up. It finally caught up to them, you know what I'm saying? That moment when it finally catches up to you. The criticism that we've been giving them for a long time now, you know, people will say like, oh yeah, whatever. They'll say, oh, you're not, you're roasting Destiny 2, but we'll see you on, I saw all these people say, we'll see you on Tuesday, you know, right? Well, you didn't see them. Everyone was trying to make fun of, yeah, roasting Destiny 2 players. We'll see you. You'll be there playing Edge of Fate. We'll see you there. And they didn't show up. Roasting all the Destiny 2 players because they critique Bungie for not doing A, B, and C, you know, 1, 2, and 3, doing this and that. And eventually they just got fatigued enough that they literally didn't show up, man. What happened to y'all? You didn't show up. Where did you go? This is the graph. This is crazy to me. I feel like I need to pinch myself like I'm dreaming. There's no way this is a real graph of a new annual expansion in Destiny. If you were to do a projection from this point on, it's going to look pretty fucking bleak, man. It's going to look pretty fucking bleak. I mean, this is the happy period here. Look at this, 2020, we're talking COVID. We got a huge increase in people playing video games. Everyone's inside, COVID. Really solid player base, over 100,000. Look at this. There was a period of time here we had like almost 100 to 200,000 regularly for a year there, and now we can't even launch a new expansion with 100,000 people. Crazy, man. We're gonna have to see some big changes to leadership to get this fixed, because this is crazy.